All right, hello. Welcome to Kirks Grocery. We're here today with Mary Serbe once again. We're taking our masks off. Good thing you're 6 feet away from us.
That's why we're taking them off.
So we have Seeing Patterns today, which is a collaboration with a wonderful nonprofit art gallery down in San Francisco called Creativity Explored. And we're going to talk about Creativity Explored a little later in the program, 15, 20 minutes, about halfway through. I'm going to show some how I first was introduced to them back in the 90s.
Back in the 90s where?
San Francisco.
San Francisco, California.
Right after the earthquake, possibly, a year or two later. And we'll talk about that later. But mainly, the thing I love about Creativity Explored artists is they're innovative, they're visionary, they're original, and they follow their own paths. They're not trying to follow any necessarily art history movement or any sort of genre. And that comes from their capabilities, I believe, and the freeing that Creativity Explored gives them.
Yep, gives them that open space, and they also map out their own patterns in their work.
Yeah.
We're going to start right here in the front. Shane made this great sign.
There's patterns in everything. So the first artist we have up here, which we used as our cover model, our cover image for the show, the posters, the live stream, you might have seen it out there. We've been trying to promote this a whole lot here from Billings, Montana. This is Daniel Green's work. And he is an artist down at Creativity Explored in San Francisco. And the way this show came about, when I started talking to them, we put together, I chose 5 or 6 artists that I thought I would like to work with. And what I love about a lot of these artists is they work in repetition, they work in patterns. And Daniel Green works in words and images, and a lot of times just words. Want to talk about any of the words in there?
Sure. I mean, what I like about Daniel Green is that you get a sense of what his life may be like. It feels like a slice of his life, his interests. So he's from San Francisco, but then in this one he's listing a lot of years, but often he'll also have figures. Like up here it says John F. Kennedy, Malcolm X, and that's who we see here. But then he also goes off into Chuck Norris, Walker, Texas Ranger. Like Shane was saying, he's just following his own path. And then you see Nat King Cole shows up here. What's great if you're in the gallery or if you look online and spend time is that as you read, it gets so interesting the way it shifts. You know, so you'll see Batman and Superman, and then it switches down to turkey burger and cheeseburger. Turkey burger and chicken burger with cheese. So to me, it just feels like Daniel Green is giving you a slice of his experience.
Yeah, and what I noticed that I've learned from Daniel Green's work, he's interested in TV shows, Guiding Light being one, As the World Turns. That's what these are dates. And he's also interested a lot in Street Fighter. We'll see a lot of verses, a lot of Ken versus Cammy and Cammy versus M. Bison, Los Angeles, September 2018. And, you know, I think for me, I make this up in my head. I imagine he just writes this stuff rather quickly. You know, it's just a flow that leaves his hands. If you do go to the Creativity Explored website, they do have a video of Daniel Green working, and you can see him working on his work. Out there tonight, we should have Clea. She's with Creativity Explored. She helped me put this show together, as I said earlier, when I chose the artists, and then she went through during COVID. She went into the city, and she went through all the art of the artists we looked at, and she pulled together the Seeing Patterns show. So all the work, Clea helped. She curated this show, and she should be on the comments tonight. So if you do have questions about Daniel or Ethel or some of the other artists we're working with and I don't know the answer, please just ask that on the live stream, and Clea can help that. Ellen Kuntz also helped me put this show together. She was interning here, and she helped me hang it and get a hold of Clea and just coordinate with me. It's a lot to do these shows. And tonight we're back with Stan Parker and Ty Herman as our camera crew. Woo! And we're about to get crazy with Seeing Patterns. We're going to try not to run over LB, the dog.
He's excited about being run over by the camera. And
you want to talk about this first one?
Sure.
Let me move this chair.
Oh, let's move the chair. Let's move the chair, leave the dog. Yeah, can everybody out there in Facebook land see this piece? Here we come. So this is another artist from Creativity Explored. This is Ethel Revita. Totally different style than what we just saw. This piece is called Boots. So she's taken the same form, the same idea of boots, and we see her make that into a pattern and repeat it, but she's also changing it as it goes along. So she's also creating this really interesting composition where things kind of shrink, kind of grow, but they're also highly organized. And what I love about this show, Seeing Patterns, is that it's patterns within patterns within patterns. So within this show of work depicting patterns, she has these boots. Within the boots, you have the pattern on the boots, but within the whole piece, you have squares, the heel, the pattern in the boots. You have these kind of twisted rectangles, just over and over and over.
Laces or an opening. It's interesting to think what the boot looks like in real life, you know.
Open-toed, perhaps?
Yeah. And I always think this looks like buildings, you know. You know, just the windows, you know, the classic. I love it because the boots shrink and grow at the same time. It's a weird. But actually, this line's almost straight, and so, this line's curved.
Yeah, it's interesting the way she manipulates the whole space as she creates her boots. And then she adjusts as she goes along. Yeah, and then if you try to imagine, she's made it into such a design, these boots. It does make you wonder, like, what does this boot look like? Yeah, what is this opening here? Are those laces? Is that like an area that's sort of webbed where you see a little bit of your foot or your calf or your ankle through there? Yeah.
Yeah, so this is Ethel Revita. As she said, it's boots. It's $700. And Creativity Explored does a great thing where they make sure their artists get paid. So most of this money here is going to Creativity Explored and the artists down there. Kirks did add a little bit on top, but this work is just awesome. And we're going to go through so much of it. I love this piece by Ethel. We'll come to more of hers in a bit.
And what's nice about Creativity Explored getting a portion when you buy these pieces is that Creativity Explored provides that space for the artists to work and provides kind of the structure that these artists can step into to have their practice. Yeah. So it's a really great way to support the artists, support Kirks, and support Creativity Explored, all bringing the arts to another level.
And I know just like everywhere, you know, they've been affected by COVID. Creativity Explored currently, I don't think the artists are meeting at the gallery. They are all working from home, and I believe people like Clea or different workers there are delivering art supplies to them and maybe Zooming with them. I'm not exactly sure. But it's just a great website. It's a great organization, and we're going to go through it. Now, as we were putting the show together, I wanted to incorporate some Billings artists who I thought worked in patterns as well. And if you are from Billings, Montana, and you think about patterns, one of the first artists I think about is John Lodge, who is just a magnificent artist of the region who works and follows his own path, dissimilar to really anyone else I've seen locally.
He's so conceptual. His art is extremely conceptual.
And so when I was setting the show up, we reached out to John and I said, hey John, could you put some work in the show? He's had work here before, and he's working on his solo show at the Missoula Art Museum next year, and he was like, I don't got the time. Well, first, of course, like John and me, he's always excited. He said, yes. Yes, I will. And then the next day he called back and he said, you know, I can. I'm working on this huge show, and I get that. But then when Ellen and I were hanging the show, laying out the show, we realized that we really didn't have enough work to cover all the walls without it looking a little sparse. So I called up John again and I said, hey, John, I know you already said you didn't, but do you have any older work that's patterns? And true to form, John said, oh, let me just show you this work that we did back in 2012. Each of these are $550. It's 6 different pieces by John Lodge. And they're just variations coming from colors, squares, patterns.
It's all 7 by 7 inch squares within each one of these pieces. So that's the recurring theme that runs through all of them.
Yep. So there's and Susan Barnett, who was the local curator at the Yellowstone Art Museum, helped me lay this out, and she hung this beautifully. It is just hung wonderfully. We appreciate her help. I love these. These are like cord paper samples. And you just see these patterns repeating.
Yeah.
Now, if you've watched us, you know, we've done plenty with John Lodge. He's just a great artist. I love these things down here where you can, I don't know the process, but there's definitely some sort of Scotch tape involved or some sort of tape, and it's pushed over the top.
And John always prides himself on having no evidence of the human hand, and either using mechanical processes or simulating them. So I feel like you see that throughout this work as well.
And the whole thing's just one big pattern. I mean, I love it.
It is. It's one big pattern with smaller patterns within it, with other smaller patterns within it. You look at these little cores of paper, and, you know, I imagine it's like when they drill through the ice down in Antarctica.
Yeah, it's striated.
And so it's striated, so it has its own teeny tiny pattern within each pattern. And I think John Lodge is keenly attuned to that idea. So that's why John was sort of a natural fit for seeing patterns.
And I'm so happy he joined back in with us, gave us this work, beautifully framed. Yeah, as I said, from 2012.
So why don't we see some more work by Ethel? She just showed us her boot. We just looked at her boots.
This is actually Bertha.
Oh, this is Bertha.
This is Bertha Otoya's work, and it is untitled, though I tend to think it's owls. The great thing about this, working in the gallery, one thing that when I got the work from Creativity Explored, I wasn't able to get it all framed. So they sent it to me all in these plastic sleeves, and I respect the art so much, I just didn't want to pull it out and have any chance that it would get messed up. So all of them are in these plastic sleeves tonight. If you purchase them, we could definitely help you find a frame for them easily. I love this piece. It's so good. It's so direct, which is what we always talk about, what I like. I like text in artwork. I like directness. I like the immediacy.
And you like lines. You like hand-drawn lines. And so this connects really closely to your own work.
Look at how tiny it gets. And she's just down in there making each of those feathers, each of those tiny feathers. And this piece is so great, she couldn't stop drawing the owls. She flipped it over, and there's 3 more owls on the back.
So if somebody purchases this piece, you actually get 3 more owls for the price of 7.
Yeah.
10 for the price of 7, everybody.
Yeah.
That's a lot of owls. If indeed they're owls, this is our interpretation of an untitled piece.
We don't know, I don't know a lot about Bertha. If anybody has any questions out there about these specific artists, Bertha, Daniel, Ethel, or Hung, please just ask on the live stream. We have Clea out there. She may be able to answer some questions. She's from Creativity Explored. And you can always go to their website, which is vast and full of amazing art. And it's just...
And because of the magic of Facebook, the artists themselves may be on as well.
Yeah.
We're doing a more high-level production right now. We can't see the comments, but maybe the artists are out there watching, and if you are, thank you.
Yeah. Move along.
All right, let's come along this wall then.
So this here is the only piece we have by Hung K. Shiu, is how I'm going to pronounce it. I haven't met him, and I do not know exactly how to say this. And I love this piece. It's, I love the lines of it. I love the patterns. You know, everything's going to have patterns. Half of it's black and white. Half of it's colored, or has color in it. And we look at some of my work here in a bit. This is the piece I kind of based the pieces I was inspired to make for this show on this piece. Anything, Mary? What do you see in there?
Well, what I see is sort of a breaking of pattern in this piece. You have these thicker, larger kind of marks on here, and they're more irregular. I feel like they don't follow a pattern, even though they fit within the larger pattern. And I think that's what makes it exciting. Gives it more of the sense of something that's been woven by hand. You know, sometimes when something's woven by hand, especially by somebody who's learning, you know how to knit or how to work with textiles, you can have a chunky bit, or maybe you decide to have a chunky bit in there. And it makes me think
weaving.
of that.
It's very much like a weaving.
Yeah, to me, it's very fabric based, like looking closely at a sweater or a scarf or something like that. And as the temperature has plummeted here and a mountain of snow has arrived, it makes me think of this time of year right now, what we will call autumnal winter.
Autumnal winter, very nice.
That's where we're at in Billings, autumnal winter.
A lot of these pieces are untitled. You know, from when I've been to Creativity Explored, these artists are sitting or standing, but they're working. They have some assistants there, maybe helping them find some colors or handing them some paper. But these people, these artists are allowed to just create what comes out of them freely.
Which is every artist's dream, to have the time and the space to be able to just create, and to even have people help you out with art supplies and that kind of thing. I mean, that's the dream.
So the other day, Mary and I, getting ready for this live stream, we got on YouTube and we watched a PBS special that was on Creativity Explored that was made a while ago, and it was real wonderful. And it talks about, you know, I don't know, it just talks about the freedom these artists are allowed to have.
Because some of these artists, they're saying, have spent their lives maybe in a situation where other people are trying to kind of guide them, tell them what to do, put parameters on them without realizing that they have an artistic vision and they have something to say, and they're just looking for that space to say it. And so I feel like when we were watching that on YouTube, it really kind of drove that point home, that these artists, they know what their intention is and they know what their content is. They don't need somebody to say, oh, would you rather do a sailboat? Would you rather put a unicorn here?
Exactly.
These artists understand their own practice, their own sense of, in here you see design, repetition, pattern, color, and it lets these artists just soar.
And when I was talking to John about this show, John Lodge, whose work we looked at a little bit ago, you know, we were just kind of like, you know, why do we even try as artists? I think as artists like Mary, a lot of visual artists, you know, we've been looking at art our whole life. We've been studying art. If we went to school, if we didn't go to school, and the more you know sometimes of things, and this is my take on Creativity Explored art, and what I love about it, is we start to put up roadblocks. You know, if we're a musician, you know, we want to make sure we know the name of the chord we're playing and how to move those chords forward and how to get the best. And as, you know, visual artists, you know, we're analyzing because we've had teachers tell us, you know, oh, don't do this or do that. Or, you know, we know the history, we know what expressionism is, we know that graffiti art influenced art in the 80s, we know conceptual art, we know all this stuff, and it starts to put these blocks around us mentally, and it's hard to free your mind of those sometimes. And when I look at this work, a lot of what Creativity Explored to me is it's artists who have let those go, or they're not interested in knowing about that, or that's my take on those. Now, I don't know these artists personally.
But I like that you see in some of these pieces, you see this just freedom to embrace visual culture, like television, like Chuck Norris, like historical figures, that sometimes, you know, sometimes artists feel like they've got to have a certain approach, or they have to be ironic, or they have to be this or that. You can't just embrace it. So, yeah, that's part of what's exciting. But that being said, when we go from the work here by Hung Ki-shu, I believe, Clea can let us know if we are mispronouncing that, to your work, Shane.
So I put up three drawings in here. Now I've worked with strictly lines a lot of times. I did a project with L1011 where I hand drew 50 album covers for them, and they were all based on just straight lines, curved lines. So this is something I've been working with, but I was definitely inspired by Hung's piece here. And one thing I will say about my work is one thing I've learned with using the pens I use Uniball markers, or Uniball pens. You can buy this pack, multicolored pack, and you'd think they'd all be the same and they would all react the same no matter what conditions they are put on. But I've learned by using them that the red and the black are not water soluble, but yet the blue is, and so is the green and the purple. So I did this line drawing, and this one I did with a ruler, and I just kind of variegated colors, you know, how I liked, and then I just splashed some water on it, because I knew when the water ran, the randomness of it would be beautiful, but also that the blue would run and the red and the black wouldn't. And so that was something I'd learned from just using these pens for years. And you know, sometimes you can't find the same pens, but it is weird, I think, that the ink is different.
Well, that's the thing. You have that interest in the Uniball pens, which is part of the process here.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting because I just assumed that when you see this strip here, I assumed that you stopped and chose not to fill that space in.
Oh, wow, no.
But then when you tell me that it was actually wiped out by the water, you know, it's interesting, the positive and the negative space and your interest in what's going to happen. So then did you let the water drip down and outline this? And then I don't know how well people can see on the screen, not outline this second drip here?
No, this is just how it did. I just, the water was, the drawing was sitting there and I knew it would react, so I just splashed a little water on it, kind of tilted the paper and it ran, and then you can see it ran off here. It ran off here. That's just another one. It just reacted differently with that bit. Yeah, and you know, when you're making these patterns, when you're drawing lines, like this one I was using a ruler. If you look right in here, you can see where the color drops out. And I'm using a ruler and I'm drawing pen lines. But for whatever reason, multiple times in the exact same spot, the line drops out. And I don't know if that's because maybe I tilted my hand a different direction or if there was something on the paper. And I love these random chances of drawing, you know, a lot of times. Anyways.
Well, it's interesting that you're using a ruler, which, you know, a ruler is often used for control and precision. And it created this randomness. And then you move over here. I would be surprised if you were using a ruler.
No,
that's freehand, right?
Yeah, these were the two different ones. I wanted to do one with a ruler, and then this one is freehand. And you know, this one looks way more like Waves, or you know, the Joy Division album cover.
Or The Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou.
Yeah, yeah, it's a beach scene. But you know, I was just trying to, you know, you can see the patterns of how my hand moves, and each time I kind of follow the line, even though slightly, and then I readjust, and it goes back. And the beauty of these lines, I just love them. I mean, the simplicity of them.
It's like seismic activity. You know, it's similar to lines that can be made by a machine, but I think it's immediately clear that they're drawn by hand.
Yeah. And both of these are by me, Shane De Leon, and they are $200 each. And all the work you see today is available at our website, kirksgrocery.com. And you can go directly there and click on the artist's name, or right at the top it'll say, you know, latest show. And you can come and look at this work and you can purchase it right online. You can always call us, email, however you want.
There's a landline. We got it all at Kirks Grocery.
Landline, credit card.
Yeah. That's how we run credit cards here at Kirks Grocery.
Okay, well, let's look at the last one on this wall. Now, this is another one by Bertha Otoya, our friend who had made the owls behind you, or what we considered owls. And this I specifically asked Clea when we were setting it up. I said, hey, are there any of those hearts by Bertha? I noticed at their website that Bertha works in hearts a lot, or a lot of her work has hearts in it. And Clea had said that it was rather a popular style, but that she found one for our show here in Billings, Montana. And I love it.
Oh, so this is a popular style for Bertha, meaning it sells out quite a bit? Is that
No, I just mean, yeah, well, when I was looking at the website, she had multiple ones with hearts. And I just said to Clea, hey, I'd love one of the hearts. And Clea had said she'd kind of moved on, I believe. But anyways,
okay.
This one showed up and I was real happy.
Oh, so that's interesting. So this might indicate a point in her practice before what we call owls. Interesting.
And this is from 2011, and it's $700.
Yeah.
I love just the variegation of color. Like it's red, a different red, the purple. They just start to blend a little bit.
Well, and hearts are very symbolic. And I mean, I think that's the power, and that's probably what draws people in, the symbolism of this shape for a heart. And just the repetition of how she's drawn it. She's drawn it with pen, with what looks like black pen, and filled every heart in.
With a marker.
Yeah, and that marker, it makes it a little bit more abstract in the background.
Yeah, she didn't try to fill it in, you know, she just gave the color.
Yeah, it's not hyper precise. So it's not completely filled in for every single heart as they get smaller. And it gives it some motion, it gives it this energy, I think, that if they were all really precisely colored in,
we should have had a
wouldn't be
contest to guess how many hearts are on the Bertha Otoya.
It's not too late, everybody. Guess how many, but don't hit pause. Don't cheat.
I would love it. I would love it. Yeah. Okay. I'm not going to count it all, but if I like your guess, I like it.
If Shane's likes your guess, he likes it. That's a great way to resolve it.
I don't want to count all that.
No.
I mean, you know.
I know everyone would like us to count it live, but
I mean,
maybe not tonight.
10, 20,
Oh,
30,
we're counting
40,
it live. Okay, here we
50.
go.
I
All
mean,
right.
That's at least a lot.
That's at least a lot, and there's big ones too that we didn't even get to counting tonight, everybody.
Wonderful.
So I really love this wall right here. Some notable celebrities, the creme de la creme of American culture. We've got our friend Maury here from the Maury Povich Show, vintage 1991, which is fantastic. And we're back to Daniel Green's work. He always, not always, but in a lot of the work we have here, he lets us know that he's a San Francisco-based artist. And he's always documenting. He's also interested in professional wrestling, which you see come up again and again. I know a lot of folks love professional wrestling. Macho Man Randy Savage is right there, sort of the old school wrestlers.
Fight Crush, Women Bathroom with Miss Elise Teach, Mad, Mr. Fuji. Maybe these are all wrestlers?
It could be. And then we're back up here where we have a little bit more information about both Guiding Light and As the World Turns.
And Channel 5 must be a San Francisco station that he enjoys. I noticed
Yeah.
that he likes to put the logo even.
And breaking news we see on some of the other pieces. Breaking news from Channel 5, yeah.
I was over there checking on the computer just to make sure everything was working good. Did you say it was called the Maury Povich Show?
I didn't, but I did give a hint. But this one's called the Maury Povich Show right here.
I love this big M. And I don't know, is that the Maury Povich logo?
I don't
I've never
know.
watched the show, really.
I mean, everybody knows Maury, but I also don't know. This is one of two pieces I've seen that we have in the show tonight where he also uses these silhouettes.
Yeah, and I think this looks like, you know, he does use historical figures a lot, maybe Benjamin Franklin.
Ooh, okay, yeah. I'm not sure who this is here.
I don't know.
I mean, my own personal connection, it reminds me of the man on the mountain in New Hampshire who fell off the mountain.
Well, let's take some clues from here. Abraham Lincoln's birthday, February 12th, and maybe this is Abe Lincoln. Beard.
Oh, yeah.
George Washington's
George
birthday,
Washington.
February 22nd,
Yep.
1732.
And he's juxtaposed them before.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a pairing that he enjoys. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I love this work. Creativity Explored, a lot of the artists have worked with text. I think his name's John Patrick McKenzie, was one of their earlier artists from the 90s I was interested in. And he was always just text, strictly text. And just these beautiful filling in of letters, filling in of shapes, cat, dog, you know, the A's are filled in, the O's are filled in.
The M is filled in here.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, well, once you've had enough of Maury Povich, I think a lot of us feel like now it's time for
Change the channel.
someone else. Jerry Springer. And I like Jerry Springer here because it's a very different style in the way that he has a really large body and his head is a little bit smaller there. And he set up the composition a little bit differently here. So we've got Jerry Springer, we've got Bret Hart right down here. And again, we see these juxtapositions, right? Abraham Lincoln and George Washington, Guiding Light, and As the World Turns, one next to the other. We see that over and over again here, so that Daniel lets us know either about his interests or what he's doing with his day. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure. If he's out there, he can feel free to chat that in for us. We would love that.
We're not able, Mary and I, to keep up with the comments right now.
Yeah.
So talk
Yeah.
amongst yourselves.
Yes, everybody talk among yourselves.
Thanks so much for watching the Kirks live streams. We're going to move this way.
Oh, we're going on a ride,
We're
everybody.
going on
Here
a big
we go.
ride. I'm going to let Mary, because next
Guide
week we're
us
going
on
to
the ride?
look at
All
is
right, let's come on this way with me. Through the vastness of Kirk's Grocery, over here to this wall, where I'm going to tuck myself in here. Where we have some of my newest work right here, two pieces, but hold your horses, everybody. They're already sold. You don't need to go on the website and buy these. These have already sold. But these are two new pieces by me along that theme of seeing patterns and following in the footsteps of work I did recently where I had painted lines and then sewn over top. Except this time I painted and then I put the lines on top of the paintings. I kind of reversed the order, reversed the layering of everything. And my use of thread is much more gestural, just across
There's so
the
much
board.
more color in these than Mary's last work that I've really enjoyed them, especially up against this Neltje that we'll look at next. A lot of the things I notice, being someone who's been following Mary's work for a few years, she's continuing to work with lines, which has been a real important part of hers, and also blurring the line of what's paint and what's thread. As this line comes down, it's acrylic paint, but then all of a sudden she pops it here with some thread. It's also thread down here. And this is laid so loosely, just kind of laid on top. Is that just kept down with glue? I mean, not glue, but just the paint itself?
That's tacked down with the paint. And so even along the edge here, you know, this line is very thin embroidery floss here. And so that was another thing in my last series. Yeah, I bleached out all the color. It was a lot of blacks and maybe navy blues against kind of a ecru kind of color or white like paper. And this time I went in with color. Before I came to Billings, I used to work with color, a lot of juxtaposition of texture of color. And then since I've been here, I've been inspired by the lines in my own journals. That's where the lines have come from. But this is kind of taking me back to my base, which is vivid color, but with a different palette. I don't usually work in baby blues. I don't usually work with these pastels. So
They're real light. I love these pieces. They're light and airy. So Mary and I both were able to see the work that came from Creativity Explored, and we kind of reacted to it. So we came up with the name Seeing Patterns, and then we reacted to the work we got from the artists.
Absolutely. Yeah, and with these I painted, then I put kind of masking tape down. Then I painted the black in between the spaces where the masking tape had been, and then I ripped it off, which is what I started doing with my last series of work. I started to use acrylic and work quickly and be able to put down a layer of paint, let it dry, and then just tear off the masking tape. So that's what I have going on here, except I'd stop the tape here where I've already painted.
Yeah, and we're happy to have sold them. You know, during COVID, we've lost a lot of walk-in traffic. We've lost a lot of people just swinging by to say hi because we don't have events so much anymore. But we have been stepping up our game online, so make sure to check out the website. Mary, we keep selling her work, so you probably want to pick that up before you don't make a lot of work because you're busy.
Okay, which is true. But this is my most recent work. And I'm busy working at the Yellowstone Art Museum where since before the lockdown, we've had the work of Neltje. At the Yellowstone Art Museum, we've had a really significant exhibition of Neltje's work with large-scale paintings far, far taller and far, far wider than this.
Are they like 10 by 20, those paintings? 10 by 30?
I'd say 10 or 12 feet high by 30 or 40 feet long. And we have a variety of work, but some of it is very similar to this piece here. And so that was not in the forefront of my mind while I was creating work for this show. But then once I saw this piece, I realized that all those months of touring that work and being around that work had that influence on me.
Yeah, I see it so much in your work. And so I don't personally know Neltje. I've met her assistant a few times through Jane Deschner. She introduced me to Neltje, and she got us a piece last February, about 8 months ago or so, right before the lock, for the mix show. And I just stayed in contact with her assistant, Neltje's assistant, when we were doing Seeing Patterns. I loved this piece at the Yellowstone Art Museum by Neltje that was called Into the Emptiness or something like that. And it's very similar to this. And, you know, I just asked if there was any more, and this was an unshown piece from that series made in 2018. And this did not make the show at the Yellowstone Art Museum, and we're so honored to have her work at Kirks in the first place. But to have one that I just absolutely adore and love, yeah, this is an amazing piece of art she's from Wyoming. I believe she's about 82.
Yeah, Neltje lives in Wyoming. She's been there for quite some time, and Neltje's really inspired by Sumi ink and that idea of that gesture with a line. So when you see a lot of her more recent work especially, you see that type of gesture. If you think about a lot of calligraphy coming out of Asia and how that movement of the brush and that what the brush puts down, the paint here, and what it doesn't, where it leaves it empty, that kind of process really inspires Neltje, and also colors, which she's tied in from her own garden down in Wyoming as well, and that influence of color and season.
And what I read about it at the Yellowstone Art Museum was that the way her practice works is she makes, if I get this correct, a movement or a line, and that leads to the next one.
Yep.
So I don't know how she did this, but you know, let's say she did this line, and then she stops, and instantly it makes her think of this. She doesn't ponder, she tries to be free, and she just tries to let each line influence the next line. And I love it. I love these just solitude, big blocks of color with these scratches. It's a beautiful piece of art.
Yep.
It's $5,500. It's acrylic on canvas, and it's 60 by 60, and it's amazing, and it's a great deal.
And it's a great opportunity to purchase a Neltje because her work is pretty sought after.
Yep.
She has a very significant reputation.
Yep.
So it's very exciting to have Neltje's work at Kirks. Like you said, to have the second piece of her work here at Kirks is fantastic. Thank you, Neltje, if you are watching.
Yes. All right, we are about halfway through our live stream. We're going to look at another one by Mary Serbe. Now, this is a diptych called Antarctic Rivulet. Any reason for that name, Mary?
Well, I have a piece called Antarctic Vermont and a piece called Antarctic Kentucky, where I've juxtaposed more literally. Antarctic Vermont is a juxtaposition more realistically of a photo of Antarctica and a photo of Vermont. And then Antarctic Kentucky is a giant portrait of George Clooney, where I'm juxtaposing the color scheme of Antarctica with George Clooney's face. He's from Kentucky originally. And so this is Antarctic Rivulet because, again, I feel like the color scheme to a certain degree, if you can see through Facebook, you know, the grays, the whiteness, the lack of scale. People who go to Antarctica often say there's no perspective there because there's such openness and such whiteness. And then this isn't my typical color scheme. So to me, this is reminiscent of rivulets, of moisture on a window, of water, of the bleed of watercolor paint or that kind of thing. So that's what led to the title for this one.
Another great piece. I love how you connected it. You'd put these lines across. You gave it this little jog, but the lines line up. Real imaginative.
Yeah, and that's what's nice about putting the lines down last as opposed to first. You know, then I could see these pieces and align them, put the lines over top, and then finish it in a way that would pull them together into a diptych. This is probably my first diptych. I don't really, I tend to work on one canvas or one object at a time. So,
was there a reason you did it?
Because of the two pieces together.
Oh.
Because these two pieces were going to be separate. They were going to be 4 pieces total. And then I started to see that alignment, and then I started to connect it, especially with this white line here, painted in with white. And then once I saw that, I thought, yeah, this is a time to have these solid lines overlap both of them and pull them together. And these lines actually are a very dark blue, not black.
I can see that here. It looks black, but here you get this little midnight blue.
Yeah. And so it picks up with these bright colors. And for these pieces, because I work with thread, you end up with a ball of thread that you don't want to throw away, but it's not enough thread to keep going. So I have this ball of many, many colors of thread. And I started to just pull out that thread. So just to see what was there. You know, there was brown, there was yellow, there was green, and just go with, sort of like you said about Neltje, go with what I find, follow that to lead me through these pieces.
Yeah. Awesome.
All right, where do we go next?
We're going to just turn the camera real short on this one.
Okay.
And then we're going to sit at this
more of
table
your
here.
work.
But I forgot, we had this one more.
We have this
This
dog.
was the third piece of mine in the show. It's called Curves. And once again, it's just line work, uniball pens, no water this time. This is a style I've been doing for 10 to 20 years. Mainly, I just do this in sketchbooks. I have a lot of sketchbooks just filled with curvy lines. I like the 3D aspect that the twisting lines can form and the twisting lines can create. And that's what I got to say about this one. I mean, it's more of my work. I don't want to focus on this too much. We have a lot more work by the Creativity Explored artists. But this is Uniball on watercolor paper. It's $200. And
yeah, and again, I love the interpretation. Before you went with all straight lines, and this time you took it in a direction that I think is very Shane De Leon. The swooping movement of the uniball pen, that's very signature Shane De Leon.
Two people were amazed that I did this by hand. I will say that. The cleanness of the line, I'll take the compliment.
All right.
We're going to move on.
Let's move on to the
We'll
next
try
one.
not to run over this dog.
We're going to try to move LB out of the way. Most people know that LB is almost always part of our live streams. I'm going to just shove him. Come on, pups. Because he's a shove.
And we're going to go to just the square pieces over the mantle. Oh, the zines. I'm sorry,
Oh,
sir.
we forgot about the zines.
Holy cow.
Almost forgot about the
Is this
zines.
the spot to sit right here? So,
All right there.
midway, break time.
Hello, sir. I've come to hear about the zines.
Man, I wish I had something to drink. I'm just joking. So, Creativity Explored. Early 90s, me and my friend Robin Yorkie, we go to San Francisco, I don't know, 91, 92. And we end up at Creativity Explored for whatever reason we end up there, because we love art. And we hear about it, and we walk down the street, and we see the sign. We go inside, we have a blast, and then I start buying their zines because I had already been trading with Harold Fletcher. I don't remember the actual time zine. These ones I traded with Harold Fletcher. He's an artist who later on went to work with Miranda July. They've done a book together. He's done a lot of stuff. But Harold Fletcher and me just started trading zines. And these were...
Now, what about people out there who may not know about zines? How would you define a zine, Shane?
A zine is just like a magazine, a paper object that is created by you to showcase your art or your writing or your photography.
Right? With a
Mass-produced,
photocopier?
usually a photocopier. Oh, I was just talking about, I think this is John Patrick McKenzie. Was that his name? Yes. And I was talking about him earlier, how he was just text-based, and filling in the letters.
Chicken curry.
So
California.
this is kind of the stuff I saw by Creativity Explored. I loved it. I loved the story. Each of these whippersnapper nerds have little biographies on the inside. And these are the originals. These have been reprinted. You can buy the reprint collected editions on Amazon or your bookstore, wherever you buy books. I ain't pumping Amazon. I don't know why that came out of my mouth. But these are awesome, these whippersnapper nerds. There's interviews in them with the artist. Here's, let's see, who's this? Elizabeth Meyer getting interviewed.
Oh, I love that image. So how does this connect to Creativity Explored? Did you trade?
So Harold Fletcher was maybe working there? Yeah, here we go. This is the first issue of what we hope will be a continuing publication of work by students at Creativity Explored, a nonprofit art center for developmentally disabled adults. About 6 months ago, we began working with people from Creativity Explored on a video project. While at the center, we've had the opportunity to look very closely at some of the prolific writing and drawing being done there. Great fans of certain artists, and decided to get this magazine as a way of the work to reach a larger audience. And this profiles Michael B. Loggins, who really was my...
Can you show a little longer?
Yep.
Hold up.
Yeah, let's take a look at that. Michael B. Loggins. I want to just point out, just personally,
His dogs?
Oh, well, his dogs are amazing. I love the art. And it says that he lived with his parents in the Portola district of San Francisco, where my cousin lives. If you're watching, Shannon Serbe, love you.
Let me turn this page because I love this. All my life, I never saw a policeman drinking a Sprite.
That's a great piece.
It's got a...
All my life, I've never seen a police officer drinking a Sprite either, so it speaks to me.
Here's the normal, ordinary car, normal, ordinary driver. And I just loved the rawness. We've talked about this art, and it's just freeing. And anyways, I got these with Harold Fletcher, or I bought them at Creativity Explored, and they're hard to find. I mean, you can't really find them on Amazon. This is the first pressing on eBay or anything. This has been repressed multiple times. I'm real happy to have the original.
Yeah, let's
cover.
take a look at this for a second, because this one's amazing.
Fears of My Life by Michael B. Loggins.
Fears of your life.
Of your life. Oh.
And think about your life out there in Facebook land. How many fears do you have? Well, let's find out how many fears that Michael has.
I think Michael has about 154, 138.
138 fears of his life.
Things that you are very fearful of. And they start real basic, you know. Fear of hospitals and needles, fear of school and dentists, fear of black cats, fear of monsters being under my bed, fear of intruders coming into the house to steal things and hurt us all.
Absolutely.
So they start out, you know, pretty basic, but as Michael goes on, you know, he talks about people being afraid of him. They're just amazing. Fearful that if you put too much of toilet paper in the toilet bowl, it will run over and get all over the floor and on you and on someone else too. And it would leak from upstairs to the next floor below. That's a real fear. I get that.
You don't want to be in that situation, I'll tell you that.
And through these zines, I just started to follow Creativity Explored. And then I was on tour a lot with bands, and I would always take different bands there. And I'd make sure that people saw it. It's one of America's greatest spaces. Like if you walk in, it is inspiring. It's a little unnerving because you're surrounded by adults of different abilities that, you know, usually meet a couple like that at once. And this is a whole room, and they're all making art, and they're all excited, and they're all just happy with life, and
so it's an artist community.
It's an artist community
with
that is
people just working.
art.
I know when I lived in Chicago, Project Onward is in Chicago, and I believe there's a similarity in that you would walk in and you could purchase art, you could purchase various things, but the artists were usually there working at that time, and you can walk over and say hello if it wasn't too disruptive and find out what people are working on. And that energy is in the room of 8 or 12 artists working right there all at the same time.
I think when we were watching the PBS special on Creativity Explored, I think at this location there's usually 20 to 25 artists.
Wow.
And then there's another location that I've never been to. How much I've talked about Creativity Explored, I've never been to their second location because I'm always amazed by their first. And I think we heard it had like 70 or something. Didn't it say that on there?
I think it was a pretty high number of artists total.
So this in San Francisco, Creativity Explored is really helping a ton of people be full-time artists and realize their dreams in a way that may not be possible for them without this organization. And I know here in Billings we have a place called Growth Through Art, which does a similar style of project, and we tried to get to be involved with them, have them involved with this. It just didn't work out. But we're here at Kirks Grocery to just talk about what art is. That's why we do these live streams. We show everything from, you know, we just show stuff.
Yeah.
Teenagers.
Let's show some more stuff.
Let's show some more stuff. Thanks for sitting around. And these are some of the best. I went through a divorce. I sold all my stuff years ago, but I kept these. These are real art things that I will cherish these the rest of my life. So thanks for Creativity Explored for putting those out.
Yeah.
All right, let's
So
go
where
into
should
the
we
back
go
room.
Let's head into that back room. And I'm going to follow you, Shane. I feel like you have a plan.
Well, I think
believe
we're going
it
to just
begins
go
in the
over the mantle.
Yeah. Let's check this mantle out. I'm going to get up higher for this one, as I did on our last live stream.
I do want to point out, we're not going to go too, do we sit down just for a sec?
I'll step back down.
I just want to point out that over here we have some Renee Audettes. We put these up at the Ellen Kuntz, thought these would go good with this show. We've had these out many times before. You can see them on our live streams. But we liked the patterns, seeing patterns. Renee Audette, she's going to have, our next show in December will be a Renee Audette retrospective, will be a solo show up here in the front gallery. Large scale porcelain works. These are just some small things we put up. for seeing patterns. They're
But there
$40 each.
They're fewer and fewer all the time, so if you're interested in these pieces by Renee, now is a great time to get them before her solo exhibition, when everything may blow up and it might be harder and harder to get her work.
Yeah, and I'll go, I'll go through the comments afterwards and I'll answer all your questions. So please make sure to just leave a question and we'll answer it later. We're not able to today. But yeah, kirksgrocery.com, creativityexplored.org, I believe. But here we are, Ethel Revita.
Ethel Revita.
Another Creativity Explored artist from San Francisco.
We saw her boots.
Yeah, we saw her boots.
We've seen her boots.
These are 3 drawings. Roughly, all of them are around 20 by 20. And they are $775 each. And her work is patterns. We got patterns on these ones.
Well, I think what's interesting about these works as opposed to some of the other ones is she's really taken it down to the basics of shape, especially in these 2.
Yeah.
Here she's focusing on triangles within triangles within triangles, but they are within rectangles. Before, when you saw boots, people have a personal connection with boots, but this is design. I mean, you can impose a lot of things on here. You can think of a teepee. You can think of a lot of big cities have pyramid-shaped buildings.
It looks like a bunch of tents.
Tents. It can look like a tent.
It's like
as well.
It's almost like a sequential story of watching a tent. You know, you could be like, oh.
That's true. Time of day changes.
Time of day changes. I mean, and I love here. Look at this. So you get line, line, line. Oh, let's start a new line right here in the middle.
Yeah.
But she keeps that composition,
This
the
one,
balance. Like you don't even notice it. It just looks like it's all the way across. And she sneaks in all this visual play of space and shapes.
Well, and that's what artists do. I feel like it's always fun to hide something in plain sight. And I think that's what she's doing here. You know, you think this is kind of a strict lines and columns, but it isn't.
Yeah, this is great. Her artwork, I'm a big Sufjan Stevens fan, and his new album, called something, Ascension,
That's it.
has a bunch of his artwork in it. And when I saw it, it totally reminds me of Ethel's work. It's intricate, yet it's basic shapes. It's beautiful. Something about it screams, I don't know if spirituality is the word, but there's something that's very
Resonance.
what do you do? You meditate. It's meditative.
Oh, meditative. Yeah.
It's very
I do
meditative to
understand
look at it.
Like a mantra?
I would imagine it's fairly meditative to make. You know, you're making these shapes. You're doing the same thing over and over. You know, and I imagine, in my brain, all these artists are working fast. This is just pouring out of them. You know, almost like smoke coming off their pen as they throw some color back down to push that sheet of paper over to get another piece of paper in front of them so she can go from squares and triangles right into circles. And this is just, is it a million donuts? I mean, it just makes me hungry. Is it a bunch of photographs?
And you already have an album cover of many, many donuts, so it reminds me of that album cover as well. Well, that's the thing too, is shapes, you know, donuts or Cheerios, or, belly buttons, or there's just so many ways to look at a circle within a circle. And I think when you talk about sort of a meditative element, I think there's a universal element to circles across many cultures. And so it draws us in, right? It draws us into what feels like the center of something is often the circle.
Did she do that? Yeah, she did the same kind of thing. So you know, they look real patterny, and
they look like a grid.
They look like a grid. That's the correct word.
Yeah.
But then you come over here, and just like on the squares one and triangles, she starts a new row, right about at the same height.
Yep.
I mean, it's a compositional tool. It's a visual pun. It's all sorts of greatness. Ethel Revita from San Francisco, or at least the Bay Area. I know they might live in the area.
Yep. And is that last one also by
Yep,
Ethel?
This last one's by Ethel. This one's a real power move. This would be like a, I don't know, it reminds me of football or something.
She completely disrupts the grid there.
Yeah.
You know, and it
Like
becomes
kind of
almost
fits
a
them
diagonal.
into the shape, like she's trying to fit them into the blank space.
Something that Clea just said actually about Ethel's work is that Ethel works really slowly, and she tends to disconnect from the world around her while she's working.
Oh, great. Thank you, Ty. Thanks, Clea.
Thanks, Clea. So, yeah, Shane
there's
had
my
thought
narrative.
maybe Ethel was working frenetically, quickly, but the reality is that she's working at a pace that is very slow, very focused.
I love these three pieces. And as I mentioned earlier, I would have loved to have all these framed and everything. They look so strong, and I know framed they would just pop beautifully on your walls at home. We'd love to sell you some. So please make sure to check out the website. And let's go look at this cool piece of wood now.
Ooh. You know what I love about this cool piece of wood? Are we able to see it out there in Facebook land, or did we just... Yeah, what I love is that a lot of the titles for Daniel Green's work directly connect with the largest figure in the work. But even though we've got this large figure here, who I believe is Paul, because we've been given a clue, the word Paul, this one's untitled. This one's up to the viewer to really discover what's going on. And it's a lot of the same themes, but it's totally different.
Guiding light as the world turns. I like up in the corner here, he even gives Creativity Explored a shout out. Creativity Explored, CE1, the 80s, the 90s, then he lists some years.
And then we get to see a little bit of references to Bruce Lee, martial arts, but then the Last of the Mohicans.
And Mrs. Doubtfire, 20th Century Fox.
Yeah, and that's the thing, it's that juxtaposition. And maybe Clea will tell us a little bit about how Daniel Green works, but we definitely learn about his strong influences. I often have wondered if he's not just influenced by television, but if he's influenced by that piece in the paper where it gives you the program guide, the TV guide. Because back in the day when I was a little kid, I mean, the TV guide would just lay it all out for you, and I kind of tend to think that that's not happening anymore, but it is. Ty, tell us more.
Yeah, so Clea just said that Paul is their studio director, and Daniel loves to depict their staff.
Oh, really? Oh, great. Is there any drawings he's done of Clea? If she answers that, that would be great.
Although there's a delay.
There's
always
a delay. Anyways.
So Paul works at Creativity Explored, and now he's captured here in this piece by Daniel Green. I love that.
It's great. And you know, we get the wrestling, we get TV, Street Fighter. They're wonderful.
Man, Randy Savage is back. Yeah. Actually, he's there twice.
And Clea did say, yes, there are some works out there that are of her.
Awesome.
So there are works of Clea made by Creativity Explored artists, or made by Daniel Green.
Yeah.
And what I like about this piece by Daniel Green is it's on a piece of wood.
Yeah, it's just
and
a piece
so
of
there's
wood.
that sculptural element to it as well.
Interesting on the back. He's got it signed there.
Yeah. And then a little information about William R. Reed as well. So that's really interesting.
Yeah. This is just a board. I mean, art can be anything, you know. Art can be whatever you decide to spend your time on and hone that skill.
And art's whatever's around.
Yeah.
I mean, kind of going back to what we said before, I know when we spoke with Roscoe, he talked about how artists are often told you need to work in oil paint to be a serious artist, and Roscoe completely rejects that and works in acrylics. And another thing you're told is, you know, the Western colonialist art history of old dead white men is that you don't pick up a piece of found wood and paint on it.
Or write on it with a ballpoint pen.
Or write on it with a pen. But the reality of art is it's made from what's around us, and it says what we want it to say, and those are just constraints that have been put on us by the patriarchy. Yeah.
History.
Yeah.
All right, we have just a couple more walls left. Once again, we thank Stan, our wonderful cameraman.
Yes. And the high-tech equipment that Stan brings.
Wow, we got a rolly, we got a dolly for this one.
A rolly and a dolly.
So this is an interesting piece in the show. We did events here all summer outside where we would set bands up on the sidewalk or poetry, and we'd have chairs in the parking spots. And one day, I would imagine she was middle school or high school girl, came by. Her name was Malia. And she asked if she could watch the band and paint a picture. And she painted this picture while she watched one of the shows outside this summer. And then she just left it here. And I'm sure she didn't think a thing about it again. And I loved this painting. It has everything I love about art, the same kind of things I like about creativity. It explores art. It's someone expression. Just, it came out of her, and I don't know if it was fast or slow, but it reminded me of the Neltje painting we looked at earlier with the
blocks of
with
color
the blocks
and the
of
lines.
color.
Yep.
But I wanted to put it near the Neltjes because that's why I wanted it in this show. But after speaking with Susan Barnett and a couple other people, we thought the colors just didn't jibe together. They just kind of contrasted. And even though they were painted similarly, I didn't think they looked great next to each other. But yeah, here at Kirks, we show artwork that we love. And this is just artwork from a local high school girl, middle school girl. And I fell in love with it. And so it's for sale. I called it Automobile. It's $150. We do know how to track her down. I do know where her father works. If it was to sell. And this is not on the website. You'd have to get a hold of me. But I love it. It's a great art. And I'm a curator and I'm a gallerist. And I'm out there just looking for art that appeals to me.
Well, and the way she broke up space is really innovative, which is one of the things that pulls you in.
Yeah.
You know, that you get the sense.
One
to me, it
line,
looks like right outside of Kirks. Maybe that's not her vision,
I
but
like
it
to think
reminds
it's
me
my
of that.
van. I like to think
I
she
also
painted
like
my
to
van.
think it's Shane's van. Shane's pretty well known for his van. And you could see this as his van. Maybe you're someone who knows Shane through music and you'd like to capture this forever on your wall.
All right, let's push this over a little way. Give her.
Let's push
So we
some
got one
chairs.
wall left.
Final wall of the evening.
We got more work by Daniel Green.
Yeah.
We have work by Ellen Kuntz, and one last piece by me. I forgot there was one more. Can we get up in this corner?
Can we get up in this corner? You can. You've got the
We're
height
gonna
for
come
it.
up in here.
Yeah, let's come on up in this corner. Join us, everybody.
Thanks for joining us again.
And I know it's from a previous show, but I think you got to say something about the feather duster.
The feather duster is made by Mark. We forget Mark's name off the top of our
I always
name.
juxtapose Mark's name with another famous artist named Mark, and I cannot stop doing it, and I don't want to say that artist's name.
And so
And I
that was part of a mixed show called Reckless, and he put that up there, and I just never took it down. I figured it wasn't never going to interrupt with someone's art again, and we would always have one of Mark's pieces
Well,
up.
as an installation piece, it works really beautifully here at Kirks. I mean, it does. It's simple.
Well, no one can reach it, so you can imagine how much we dust.
But I feel like it does become this permanent, you know, there is a space where John Lodge has signed the wall. We have this piece here. We have another piece on the glass,
I can't
and
remember
they're
Mark's
permanent
name, I'm sorry.
fixtures. I want to say the other artist's name so that I can get it out of my head, but yes, it's not Mark Bradford.
We're going to move on. Feather Duster, ahoy.
Ahoy.
One more piece by Daniel Green here.
Yes.
What's this one called, Mary?
This one
in the
is
light.
called United States of Daniel Green, which is interesting because you see one of the focal elements is this United States District Court hat. And I am guessing that that is Daniel Green, that it's an autobiographical piece right here.
Yeah, I remember, yeah, maybe it is. Who knows?
This one's a little more stripped down because I feel like you notice the whiteness of the paper more
Yeah.
than in the other pieces where the text and the drawing kind of fills it up in a way where it distracts you from the white. But right now, this is really focused there. I also have a heart for Alf, so I connect with this as well. And you see, again, the themes of his work. You see the years here, guiding light. You know, we see Abraham Lincoln, John F. Kennedy, Malcolm X, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. We see that over and over again. And then in each piece, I find something new and unexpected. I mean, we said old school wrestling, but it's the first time I've seen Andre the Giant in here. Shout out to him. Jason Alexander, born 1959, extremely well known for the film Pretty Woman and for being George Costanza on Seinfeld. I mean, you just discover so much. Like I said before, if you have a chance to come in here and look, or to go on the website and just zoom in and read and explore and discover, it really is exciting.
Yeah, there's so much. And here he's got, different buses from San Francisco, street names, McAllister and Hyde, Turk and Hyde. Here I love it. So it says Malcolm X, John F. Kennedy, sunrise and sunset instead of born and died like on the other one. He calls it sunrise and sunset. These are amazing, and I wonder how he makes them. I wonder if he does all the black pen and then all the green pen, or does he go blue, red, blue? Does he drop it down?
Or does he fill the space and change pens as he goes?
It's so hard to know. And I did watch his video at the Creativity Explored website. It doesn't delve into that. They're only about a minute or two long each. And it does show him working, but you couldn't see that part of it. I love this one on white. It's very just bold and pops off the wall.
Bold.
And then that dark face in the middle with just that really just is a focal point.
Yeah. And I want to say that I don't feel like enough people are shouting out for Matlock. Daniel Green is shouting out for Matlock. And I think I know at least one viewer at home who's shouting out for Matlock too.
Nice.
So you mentioned Ellen Kuntz was interning and was part of laying out and curating the show.
She was, yeah.
But what do we have here?
So like Mary and myself, we knew the name of the show was called Seeing Patterns, and we had already seen the Creativity Explored work, and Ellen was helping me get it ready to put up, and so she brought out some pieces that she made back in 2015, and this was a way for her own artwork to reference the current artwork. Now, a lot of her artwork is based in text, and we did do a show of hers last year. Or was that this year? Whenever. Last year. I think it was last winter.
That was last year. Yep.
Last winter.
A lot of fiber-based work.
And that was all pieces of fabric, clothing that had words stitched onto them, embroidered onto them.
Fabric
quotes.
swatches.
Yeah. Real personal, about her personal experiences, power struggles, patriarchy, men, women, these kind of struggles. So I didn't know a lot about her work besides that. She shows up when we talk about that. I think I might get a piece of fabric or something. She shows up with these journal pages from a trip to London of hers. And we have this one called Ass Hat, and it is $300.
And that's all caps, Ass Hat. Yep.
And these are scanned journal printed on cold press paper. So these aren't the originals, these are prints. And what I love about this print in particular is I love candy, and I love when it gets scanned, how it has not holographic, but a foil wrapper. And what the foil wrapper getting scanned does in the printer, it leaves all these just crazy rainbow lines.
Captures the reflection.
Yeah, it captures the reflection.
Creates a new translucence that wouldn't have been there if you had the actual wrapper.
And that happens through the light on the photocopier or whatever, the scanner.
Which brings us back to zine culture, using that copier to create something new and different.
Yep, exactly. And this has a lot of text on it. Mainly it says ass hat. I would assume she's referring to some guy. I have no idea.
Yep, and then she has a note here. Somewhere I decided this was worth saving.
Yeah, and that's you've traveled a lot. Have you ever had a journal, and as you travel, tape candy bar wrappers in there, or train tickets, or anything like that? I've done that exact same thing.
Or sometimes you open it up later and you find things in there you didn't expect to find, and they didn't have that much relevance in the moment, but then they do because they've been saved, because they've endured. And I wonder if that's true for this, or if she just enjoys the higher level of quality chocolate available in Europe than in the United States.
The Cadbury Dairy Milk.
Yep.
This is another one called London, 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 another one by Ellen Kuntz, and this has kind of a narrative across the top you could read, and I'm not going to read it to you, but it is on our website, and you could see it there.
And now maybe you can see it a little bit better at home, and it says "off life" is the text that you see most clearly, and at the bottom she has a note that says it's actually Tower Bridge Fergie is referencing.
And so what I'm gathering is there was a magazine or something called Off Life, and she wrote this on the top of it, and obviously she was influenced by all the text in this work, the Creativity Explored work. And I was happy to bring Ellen in to help me and to also interplay with the Creativity Explored artists. And she's young. She's been working here in Billings for, I don't know, a decade, photography, embroidery.
That works pretty well now.
Yeah. So we're going to go through a couple more. We have just some work by Daniel Green here.
This one's totally different, I feel like, than the others in quite a few ways. Do you agree, Shane?
I do. It's another piece on wood. It really focuses on the figurative, I feel, and I think his drawing. This drawing is perfect.
Yeah.
We were up at the hot springs and we were talking about the weird positioning of some of the human bodies.
In a mural up there.
In the mural up there. And he captures in such simplicity, like a great movement of somebody.
Because it's accurate anatomy is
Yeah.
the thing, that even though there's simplistic drawings, it hasn't become that kind of inaccurate, bizarre awkwardness that you see in some murals, or if it's...
We've talked about that before, where you can be abstract enough, but once you become too real, then people start judging you on your technicalities.
But I feel like I know exactly what he's about to do and how he's about to move and how he got in that position.
And this is called Untitled Samoan Boat. It is $1,000.
Untitled, yeah. And Samoan boat seems so different than everything else that we have here. But then he lets you know right up the top, Samoan boat.
By Gilles Combet. And we don't know who that is, but maybe he's someone who builds boats. Maybe he's a friend of Daniel's. We don't know. But once again, we have the dates. We have TV channels.
We do.
Street Fighter.
We've got Guiding Light, which we're familiar with, but we've got some, boxing on HBO and Showtime. It's a little bit different. I sometimes wonder, are these shows that he chooses to watch, or are they shows that he and others choose that he sees during the day? So perhaps he's a fan of boxing, or perhaps someone else put that channel on for a while. That's something I wonder.
Barney and Michael Bolton. Now that is a great duet.
Barney and Michael Bolton. That is a great duet.
And these, what I do like also about just the actual technique is he's using a ballpoint pen or some sort of pen, and then it just bleeds a little bit in just these little spots. Just kind of bleeds, leaving it, letting it linger too long into the wood, and the wood just starts to absorb that ink. And I love all those.
In a deliberate way. Yeah.
This is a beautiful piece. It's the most
$1,000.
expensive piece of the show. It's $1,000, and as we said, this gets split mainly with Creativity Explored and the artists, and these are a great nonprofit. We're a wonderful business doing great things for art, but Creativity Explored is like changing the world and people's lives in a super hardcore way.
Yep.
And so you should give them your money. And we also were taking donations tonight. You can go Venmo at Kirks Grocery, PayPal, kirksgrocery@gmail.com. We take cash in envelopes, which people have done that.
Yeah, just drop that right in the mailbox if you want to.
Send it to Kirks Grocery, cash in an
Yeah.
envelope.
And you can also hide cash anywhere you like in Billings and call the landline and tell us where to go find it. That's another thing that we enjoy at Kirks Grocery for donations.
All right, let's get through these last 3 Daniel Greens and one more by me.
Oh, I almost walked past this one. This was the one with my favorite title. Yeah, George Washington and Abraham Lincoln, President, sunny in New York City, Statue of Liberty. So much in one title. George Washington is in the title. Abraham Lincoln, President, is in the title. Sunny in New York City in the title. Statue of Liberty. For anyone else out there from New Jersey, we all know that's actually in New Jersey. But take a look at the way he's depicted almost all the visuals at the bottom, right? And then he uses the rest for text. Walker, Texas Rangers back in the mix.
Eddie Murphy, Dan Aykroyd. So much.
And you can see, Coming to America, Trading Places. He follows this through line as he goes through the piece. Always Guiding Light, it seems like.
Here's a bunch of maybe his friends with the last name of Green. Sipal, Fuatano Green, Orlando Green, and their whole addresses. And we had pointed out the Lincoln and Washington silhouettes earlier.
Yep.
Once again, they make their self known on this one.
And then you also see references to San Francisco. Again, you've got Chinatown, Lombard Street, Golden Gate Bridge. New York City and San Francisco in this one.
And so we're going to move on to the next ones. And what's great about these next one is I feel Daniel was pretty much like, you know what? let's forget about pictures, let's forget about graphics, let's go straight text. And I
Black
just love
on white.
I love, well, it's black on brown even.
Black
it's
on
like
white.
yellowish, I don't know. And it's just all text. I mean, you get a logo for ABC7, Wheel of Fortune, and just all these listing of Street Fighter. Balrog versus Zangief, Balrog versus Ryu, Chun-Li versus Guile. And then I like how he puts the cities after him, like these Street Fighter fights actually happened in Paris or New York or San Francisco. And like the tininess of this handwriting.
Yeah.
WrestleMania 2.
And you've got to fit all these dates into this space. You know, there's a real urgency to fit them all in right there.
And it's the same addresses of the same people that we saw in the last one. So it's these fascinations, these I don't know,
It's sort
obsessiveness in a way
of a
with certain.
fixation on certain topics, on certain people, on certain things that are experienced. Is this the second Mrs. Doubtfire we've seen? I
Yeah.
think so. And I saw Robin Williams show up in another one.
And what I think this kind of artwork can do for someone like me as an artist, as a songwriter and a visual artist, sometimes we put these limits on ourselves of what we should talk about. Should we sing about Chipotle burritos in our songs because we had a great one? I don't know. We probably shouldn't, but I like that directness when artists use the things that happen every day, because we're not all influenced by, a beautiful apple on a tree that we want to, depict.
Well, and we're influenced by our lives. This seems very centric to a life in San Francisco or
Yes.
in the greater Bay Area.
Someone who grew up watching TV, something where TV is definitely, and video games are a part of your
Just a
your
part
relief.
of,
They're a part of your life. They're a part of what you do.
and there's you follow the guide and when these things are going to be on. They're there for you. LB has walked over. This is his choice of the night. He often chooses a piece he likes the most, and it is this piece by Daniel Green. This one's untitled.
Good job, LB.
Should we look at one more by Daniel?
We'll look at one more by Daniel.
And then we'll look at your work.
And we'll end on this one here.
All right. And here, Daniel's featuring some major cities there, but he's titled it San Francisco City, California.
And once again, mainly text, but we do get a drawing of San Francisco, the Golden Gate Bridge.
And to me, it seems like it's a snapshot of one day because in San Francisco, the weather is snow, rain, and thunderstorm in San Francisco. The weather is snow, rain, and thunderstorm in New York City. The weather is mostly cloudy and a chance of rain in Washington, D.C. That's interesting.
Yeah. And it's all just
And then there's more
Hulk
weather
Hogan,
down here follows the
it's a
cities.
noun. San Francisco, noun. Cow Palace, which is, like a theater or a stadium. Like, why did it go Hulk Hogan, San Francisco, Cow Palace? Just the flowing of the pen.
Yeah. And what do we see every day? What do we deal with every day? We deal with money. We might have 100, we might have a 50, we might have a 20, we might have a 10. Those are our denominations that we have. Then we may go back home in time for the Phil Donahue show at 3, Oprah Winfrey at 4.
Now, once again, Abraham Lincoln, John F. Kennedy, Martin Luther King, Robert F. Kennedy, the day they were assassinated. So he's a assassinations ring big in his fascinations.
Fascination, yeah.
And this is just great too. Just black, gray, real basic for you minimalist home people out there.
Yeah, minimalists at home. And was this piece inspiring to you when you created this piece, or is this not a new piece?
Well, so the last piece we're going to talk about tonight is a piece by me. And the reason I've shown this is because for me it really referenced Daniel Green's work, in particular John Patrick Mackenzie, the things I like about creativity explored artists. It's purely text, and I did this piece back in 2002.
Woo!
And I had a friend die, and at that time I decided I was just going to try to write everybody's name I could remember till I filled this piece of paper up. And so I did this all in one sitting, and it goes from everywhere from, I started and I went down this way and I just kind of list my family, my neighbors, and then it goes on. I'm just remembering school friends from grade school. I'm remembering roommates living in San Diego. There's all these names on here. And after I had made it, I've always enjoyed it and I've loved this piece of art, but it didn't reference any of my other work. I'd never only done work that was all text, but I've held on to it for 18 years. And when I was putting together Seeing Patterns, I just thought, hey, you know, now's the time to show this piece of work. You know, it's all text. It can have Daniel Green's work to kind of bring that text, the art all together. And I love it. I love it because I can look at this and see people from all sorts of times in my life, friends from all over the world, people I don't talk to, people that are dead. And it was a great project. I recommend if you're ever bored, just grab a piece of paper and try to write down everybody's name you can remember. There's a lot of them, and they've been influential on you probably, and it's good to have thoughts about them.
And I feel like, you know, I can read and write in English, but if I unfocus my eyes, it's almost like something that's in Farsi, something that's in a language where I don't recognize the characters. You know, I can appreciate just the line quality and your handwriting without appreciating the content. There's more than one layer to this. It's beautiful.
So yeah, we're going to wrap up Seeing Patterns. Thanks so much for joining us here at Kirks Grocery in Billings, Montana. Mary Serbe. My name's Shane DeLeon. We had Stan Parker on the camera tonight. He is wonderful. He's helping us up our game. We will be doing a TV showish thing throughout the winter, so stay
Kirks
tuned.
TV.
Probably won't happen for about a month, but it's going to be fun. It's going to be based on art, and it's going to be a good time.
Based on chaos.
We had Ty Herman running sound for us today, monitoring,
Yeah.
helping us out when Clea had some information.
Yeah.
Always,
on the mic.
I'll be the dog.
LB,
And,
always here, staying, keeping to himself tonight pretty much, but he's doing great.
I would like to say thank you so much for supporting Kirks Grocery. We've been here over 2 years now. We stay alive through you donating, through you buying stuff at the website, coming in, and we just strive to really push art in work that Mary and I like. And so we're so happy to work with Creativity Explored when they reached out to me and asked if we could do something together. Thank you so much, Clea, and everybody at Creativity Explored. And Daniel, Ethel, Bertha, Hung, and all the Kirks Grocery artists.
John, Ellen, it's all happening here.
Mary, Shane,
Malia.
and Neltje. So yeah, we'll see you next time. Make sure to like our Facebook page. Make sure to like us on Instagram. Check out kirksgrocery.com. You can sign up for our website. And we'll see you soon on the internet. Thanks for watching Seeing Patterns.
Good night, Internet.
Ciao.